Hey guys, welcome back. So we had to read the Undercover Economist, chapter 1. And pretty much 4 words that describe this chapter was location, scarcity, margin line, and immigration. And I would like to touch on the location and scarcity margin line. It's crazy how when you think like an economist, you think differently than what normal people, just on a daily basis. For example, you go to Starbucks and you get a coffee. Well, in order to get that coffee, someone had to make it. In order for someone to make it, they had to get the coffee supplies, the machinery, the beans, and in order for all that, you have to have a location or a place to have this. And the interesting thing was Starbucks. And Starbucks is so popular, great business and marketing strategy. And a lot of people, when I think about it, is what business is Starbucks in? And a lot of people be like, oh, coffee, But I would argue it's less of a coffee shop and more of a real estate. Because if you think about it, look at all Starbucks locations and where they're located. New York City, there's every 2 streets you'll see a Starbucks. Same with McDonald's and KFC and all that. And for example, McDonald's has one of the largest real estate franchises within the fast food restaurants, I believe. And so when you say what business is McDonald's in, I would argue it's not in restaurant, it's in real estate. That's how they make their money. And I would like to further go on is, why is everything so expensive? Why is coffee shops expensive? Why do they charge $5 for a cup of coffee? And you have to think about it. Well, you've got the landlord who owns the property. And within that, they have to pay for the property tax. And depending on where you are versus Kentucky here versus New York. And New York's going to have a higher property tax just because it's the laws and state and the population. So you have the property tax and you have to cover the water bill, electric bill, and the property tax. So the landlord has to make the margin line break-even point. He has to make above that to make a profit. So like these locations like London and New York and California and Chicago, the reasons why they may be more expensive than others is because of the rent. They have to cover a certain margin and be above that to make a profit. Because it wouldn't make sense, because if Starbucks sold their coffee $1, I doubt they have enough money to even cover and break even. They might make a profit, but not as 150% of typically upcharge of what they do. And not only is the landlord and the reason Starbucks costs so much is also competitors. Because if, let's say, you have a landlord and he has 3 properties and you have one person come in, so like Starbucks, and Starbucks buys one. Well, the landlord's not going to go double the price of how much it is. He's going to go get the margin line and be above it so he can make a profit. And Starbucks will pay that. And let's say, well, now you got 2 other companies. You got Dunkin' Donuts and you got, let's say, Scooter's coffee shop. So now all their 3 properties are rented. So they all pay the margin line and the fee. Now let's say a 4th competitor comes in, but there's already 3 properties. Well, now the landlord might raise the price of rent for all 3 of those because the 4th could outbuy one of them And there are contracts and all that, and how that legality for everything. But in terms, if there's more competitors coming in, I'm sure they'll be willing to raise the price to get into the spot. And also, Starbucks, with how much money they have, they're going to pay more to stay in that location because they know that location is going to be worth lots of money. So when you think about it, it's all about competitiveness and location of where everything is. And that's where scarcity comes in. There's not enough people. Well, the landlord's not going to be like, hey, no, you don't pay enough. He's going to pay to the point where he can break even and make money. Because there's no point if it costs $2,500 to keep the place going. He's not going to offer $2,200 for rent. It's going to be above that. So this chapter is all thinking about how an economist thinks. Think, how does the system work? Like, you go get coffee or you go to the store. Where do these stores come from? Where do the food? Where do they get the food? Why are they in a certain location on the shelves? That's another thing to think about. Location and competitiveness is a reason why businesses stay in business, and the reason why prices go up and down. This is basically what the whole chapter was about. It's about thinking like an economist and how you can see a different perspective on how business works from a standpoint of an economist, thinking, why is this $5? Am I getting ripped off? Is this a good bargain? Well, take some factors into it. Location, competitiveness, and scarcity. Once you learn those three things, you start to understand why businesses are successful and why businesses fail or can't support them or fail within the first 5 years. So that is what chapter 1 is about. I hope you liked a different perspective on Starbucks and McDonald's and how they're not just in the food industry. They're in the real estate industry. Same as for Venmo, for example. Venmo is not just an app for people to transfer money. It's a bank because people leave money in Venmo. So Venmo is literally a bank and uses your money to make more money. But you don't know that because you think that $20 in there, it's just sitting there. Well, no, they're using your money. Start thinking like an economist, and you can start to really see how the system works.